In the rhetoric and rituals of death, I have an MA in that. Yes, I do.
Yes.
And I also worked with Peter Fenwick. I was his honorary researcher into an end-of-life experience study,
Okay.
which is one of its first of its kind, which we looked at what happened during the dying process. And
Wow.
we realized that extraordinary phenomena happen
Yeah.
as people are beginning their dying process, beginning to let go. And those who reconcile with their mortality
Yeah.
are able to die at peace, which is what we all want to do, really. I think before we just go any further, just to look at the word mortality, because it's got quite a bad press, because it's normally associated with death.
Yeah.
But I like flipping that on its head and saying that actually our mortality, to understand that our mortality is all about living life until our death.
Yeah. So it's the living part, not the death part.
It's the living part.
That's
it.
Yeah. And that kind of ties in with, and why I asked you if you would be happy to chat to me around energy, because I think I want to know what your views are on it, on that aspect of life transitioning, us as energetic beings. How do you see energy in that aspect?
Oh, it's just so present.
Yeah.
That's what's so amazing. I mean, I'm sure lots of people listening to this will have had some experience of sitting beside the dying.
Yeah.
And how something happens to the energy. And I want to just roll this back a bit, just to say that in my experience of sitting beside the dying and all the research I did as this in this end of life experience study, was we take a long time dying.
Yeah.
We could take months to die. We could take years to die, actually.
Yeah.
There comes a tipping point. And when that point is tipped, then we go sliding into the dying, the acute dying process. So we chronically have a dying process, which is it's a chronic situation.
Yeah.
There's something about, and then suddenly, and then there's another tipping point where the actual soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it, just leaves the body, and that's another energy release.
Yeah.
But I'm very curious about this tipping point, the first tipping point, because it's such an extraordinary experience to watch somebody start their energy starting to leave their body. And obviously it's different when people have been killed or murdered, or it's been a traumatic, quick death.
Yeah.
When you're entering the dying process, it seems to me that, I think Thomas More's very good about this. He wrote Care for the Soul.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time reading about his stuff, because I think he's got one of the most easy to understand interpretations, the difference between the spirit and the soul.
Yeah.
And I use that a lot when I'm talking about the dying process. And the spirit, in his interpretation, is, this is this transcendent part of ourselves that is God, if you like.
Yeah.
Or certainly we have an ability to transcend and want that transcendent. We're programmed to want transcendence.
Yeah.
That's the spirit. But the soul, he says, and I get this, is absolutely attached to having human experience. It wants the physical human experience. And when somebody's dying and they take a long time to die, it's as if the soul is kind of milking every single last moment it possibly can of this human experience. And the dying experience is part of that energy exchange.
Yeah.
And then when the person finally dies, suddenly there's just nobody home. Yeah, suddenly you're seeing, even in that moment, you see them in the process of death.
Yeah.
They're still there. And then bingo, gone. I find that
that's fascinating, and it's something that you've experienced quite a lot.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
I mean,